This week on All Elite Review, we reviewed the second episode of All Elite Wrestling Wednesday Night Dynamite, and it was one banger of an episode. Let's get into it. This is All Elite Review. What is happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of All Elite Review. Coming on a Monday this week because I've just been incredibly busy past week trying to get my gaming shit put up on my shelves, on my new shelves that I got. I still got more down there to go through. It is a pain in the ass, but I'm getting there a little bit at a time, and I'm going to work on it a little bit more once I'm done with this video. But first I'm going to go ahead and do my review of Wednesday Night Dynamite from October the 9th, 2019. Once again, we had 5 matches that was on the card. Including a number 1 contenders match for the AEW World Title. So AEW definitely kind of went with my idea. The thing is, it was a couple of different players than I thought there would be. But let's go ahead and get into this. So. Dynamite opens up with yet another video package about how the Young Bucks basically brought Private Party to AEW because they want to make the tag team division the best in the world, and bringing Private Party in is certainly going to help. And they would kick off the AEW World Tag Team Title Tournament, which is going to be one of the best things to watch in professional wrestling over the next month or so. Pretty much the entire month of October. From here on in, it's going to be the main focus for AEW at the moment is going to be the tag team title tournament. They just had the first match this past Wednesday night, and we're going to talk about it right now. The Young Bucks versus Private Party. And you couldn't have asked for a better way to begin AEW Dynamite than with this match, than to begin with the tag team title tournament. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest here. This show as a whole had me fucking engaged from beginning to end, the entire 2 hours. And once again, it just felt like that entire 2 hours just flew by. You know, and the ending to this show just left me wanting more. And we'll get into all that when we get to it. But let's start off with the Young Bucks against Private Party. Young Bucks start off with some nice double team moves. Isaiah Cassidy hits a nice Asai moonsault to the outside. These were the highlights of the match, by the way. Mark Quinn with a nice crossbody and a tope con hilo. And then a spaceman flip to the outside. Quinn hits a 450 splash for a 2 count. Matt hits a super kick. Which, by the way, Nick was actually teasing super kicks at the beginning of the match. But I think it was Isaiah Cassidy that was dodging them all. So that was pretty good. Young Bucks, of course, bring out their super kick party. Matt Jackson hits a running powerbomb on Isaiah Cassidy onto the ramp. And basically Isaiah Cassidy was selling a back injury for the remainder of the match, which would actually come into play a little bit later on. Nick hits a running enziguri. And then the Young Bucks do a Shiranui powerbomb combo for a 2 count. Nick locks in the sharpshooter. Matt hits a stomp for a 2 count. And then the Young Bucks do a double hip toss. And then do the backflip dropkick combo for a 2 count. Crowd starts chanting, "This is wrestling." Indeed it was. Bucks do a double stomp on the knees. I don't remember what that was. Quinn counters with a super kick. Or he counters the super kick, but Matt hits a spear for 2 after Nick pulls Cassidy off of the apron. So Quinn was going for the hot tag, and Nick pulled Cassidy off the apron, and Matt hit a spear on Mark Quinn for a 2 count. Quinn counters with a double Pele kick, and then gets the hot tag to Cassidy. Cassidy hits a shotgun missile drop kick, and then a double Frankensteiner on both the Young Bucks. That looked really good. He starts laying in forearm shots, but then Matt hits the locomotion Northern Light suplexes on both members of Private Party for a 2 count. The Bucks do the buckle bomb kick combo, and then Matt puts the sharpshooter on Cassidy. And of course, this is where the damage to Isaiah Cassidy's back comes into play. And man, he's probably gonna tap. Is he gonna tap out from the sharpshooter? And as Cassidy was trying to crawl to the ropes, Nick hits the leaps in with the X Factor, and then does the flip over into the side moonsault to the outside. That's kind of unique. But Cassidy does get to the ropes, and he does hit the poison Frankensteiner, and then Private Party pulls out their gin and juice finisher, the Avalanche Frankensteiner cutter combination. I think it was on Nick Jackson, but Nick rolled out of the ring. Mark Quinn hits a shooting star press for a 2 count. The Young Bucks set up for a Meltzer driver, but Cassidy pulls Nick off the apron, and Mark Quinn hits a victory roll on Matt for the surprise 3 count and the victory. Your winners in a huge upset, Private Party. And of course, another thing that was pretty cool was they determined what seeds all of the teams were. Like they had Young Bucks at number 1, Private Party at number 7, because there's only 7 teams in this tournament, with the Dark Order getting the bye. But needless to say, a lot of people were very surprised that the Young Bucks put Private Party over in the first round. I mean, you would have at least thought that they would have made it to the second round, but nope. They put Private Party over. That's a huge surprise. But yeah, this match was awesome from start to finish. I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. It was easily the highlight of the night. And props to the Young Bucks for putting Private Party over. Of course, a young and up-and-coming tag team. So hopefully there'll be some good things coming out of them. And then after this match, Chris Jericho and his new stable came out. So basically, Jericho was putting over each of his stablemates. He was starting to get a babyface reaction for his promo, and he basically shut that shit down. Then a funny moment happened, because then he started talking about Jake Hager, the formerly Jack Swagger, and the crowd starts chanting "We the People," and then Jericho was like, "Hey, hold on a second, We the People sucks and is dead and buried. It was a stupid idea from bad creative and all that's gone." I actually chuckled. I actually started laughing my ass off at that. Because he was taking a shot at WWE with that one. And then he also calls his new stable the Inner Circle. And they've already got t-shirts out and all that stuff. And of course he starts talking about the Rhodes family. And basically told Cody that at Full Gear he's going to beat the ever-living shit out of him. And then when it's all said and done, the Inner Circle is going to celebrate with a little bit of the bubbly. You knew he was going to break out that catchphrase of his. Something that was just, a throwaway line after his victory at All Out, where he won the world title. And it was just supposed to be just a throwaway line, and also due to the fact that, he just loves a little bit of the champagne. And it turned into one of the hottest memes in wrestling right now, which was pretty freaking funny. But yeah, we got a new faction war in wrestling. The Elite against the Inner Circle. And this is a faction war that's going to be raging for quite some time, I believe. And then we had the number 1 contenders match for the AEW World Championship. And this was for the shot in Philadelphia. and I'm going to have some things to say about that Philadelphia show. But it's all good things. I'll be getting to it when I get to it. So, number one contendership, Jimmy Havoc against Darby Allin. Now, when I looked at my rankings when this whole thing started off, I thought this matchup was a tiny bit unusual. But from Jimmy Havoc's perspective, he was actually number 5 in my rankings, and if he would have won, I think that would have launched him up to number 3. And I'm kind of given the grace period of you have to be top 5 in order to have a shot at the championship, which Jimmy Havoc was. And then I also saw that even though Darby Allin wasn't in yet, he was, I think, in a tie for 8th. But if he would have won, which we'll get to that in a minute, then that would have launched him up into the top 5. So it's like, okay, now it's a little bit more plausible in that sense. But obviously they want to try to give these guys a little bit of a rub. And there's actually something that kind of plays into that storyline in a little bit. I think it's the next match. No, it's after the 4th match. There weren't really a whole hell of a lot of highlights in this match, unfortunately, because it did go to commercial break in the middle of it, which kind of sucks. Allin started off with a magistral cradle for a 2 count. Jimmy Havoc hits a leg trap for a 2 count. Allin hits of course, his Sky arm drag, which always looks good. And then he hits a shotgun drop kick. Then he tried to suplex Havoc from the apron back into the ring, but Havoc counters it and suplexes Allin to the outside. Havoc puts a hangman sleeper on Allin in the corner, where he basically puts him in a sleeper, and since he's standing on the turnbuckle, he's basically hanging him out to dry. And then Havoc keeps the sleeper on, but then hits a sleeper suplex, which looked really good. And then that's when they went to the commercial. And it's like, well, that sucks. No picture-in-picture either. But as we come back from commercial, Havoc hits a rolling elbow for a 2 count. And then he hits the DVD into the turnbuckle for a 2 count. And then he hits a Tiger Driver 98 for a 2 count. Basically a spiked Tiger Driver. Allin gets a crucifix pin for a 2 count. And of course, a couple times Havoc was biting Allin's fingers, and then Allin countered and did the same to him. Allin hits the shoulder ride stunner. And then he hits the coffin drop, the trust fall dive for the 3 count and the victory. Your winner and new number 1 contender for the AEW World Championship, Darby Allin. His record at the moment, I think, is 2-1 overall. And he is now currently 5th in the overall rankings, if memory serves me correctly. Let me take a look at the singles rankings I got. And remember, this is just my personal rankings. This is just the kind of system that I would set up, where it's if it's a singles match, it's like, or singles match or 1 team versus 1 team, it's 3 points for a win, 2 for a loss, 1 if you lose but are not part of the decision, which is for like multi-man matches and shit like that. But as far as overall records are concerned in the singles division, as my phone goes off, right now you have a tie for the number 1 spot between MJF and Cody, and of course Cody's getting his title shot at Full Gear. He's 3-0-1 right now. MJF is 2-1 overall, but he has that runner-up at the Casino Battle Royal back at Double or Nothing that's helped him out a little bit. And of course you have Pac in the number 3 spot at 2-0. We're going to be getting to that in a minute. Hangman Page has dropped to 3-3. He's number 4 in the rankings, and Darby Allin with his record of 2-1. And with back-to-back wins on back-to-back episodes of Dynamite. He wasn't on Dynamite the previous week. He was actually on AEW Dark. He was in a dark match with Shima and actually won that match, which gave him his first win, and then he gets his second win here. So he's 2-1, and it launched him up into the top 5 in the rankings. So there you go. So in this case it makes sense because he is top 5 in the rankings right now, that he would get AEW World Title shot. And it's obvious that, they're trying to build him up a little bit, give him a little bit of clout. And, the thing with Pac, I said I wanted the smart thing would be MJF versus Pac. But I can also realize what they're doing here. I mean, Pac versus Chris Jericho, that's a pay-per-view caliber match. And that's not exactly something that you want to put out there, right off the bat. You want it to kind of simmer a little bit. And Pac actually played into that a little bit later on in the show, which we'll get to in a bit. Yeah, this was still a pretty good match. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. There was really not a whole lot of botches in this in the show either, from what I could tell. Everything looks solid as far as I could tell. Next up is a women's tag team match, and because they don't have a tag team division, everything counts for them as far as I'm concerned. They did say they would have a tag team division for the women eventually, but there's just not one right now because they gotta get the women's singles division established first. So it's just a mix mash of tag teams right now. So in this one we have Emi Sakura and B. Priestley against Riho and Britt Baker. And of course Riho and Britt Baker teamed up once before at Fight for the Fallen, and of course they were against B. Priestley there as well. So, but this time around, B's tag team partner is Emi Sakura. Now, at first glance, if you were to, here's the interesting thing about this match. There's actually a lot more layers to it than you might realize. Because if you're a new viewer to this, and you look at this at first glance, it looks like just a simple mishmash of, 4 female wrestlers coming together. But there's actually a lot more to this than meets the eye. Because, believe it or not, all 4 of these wrestlers are interconnected in some way or another. The obvious one, of course, is the rivalry between B. Priestley and Britt Baker, which started all the way back at Fight for the Fallen. When it was just them two in just in a tag match, and then, of course, the two started going at each other. And, of course, what also kind of helps with that a little bit, even though, it's not something you necessarily want to see, Britt Baker actually got a legitimate concussion from a stomp from B. Priestley, a sloppy stomp. And it put Britt Baker on the shelf and actually put her appearance at All Out in question, but she was cleared to return to the ring before All Out. And I think I said last week that Britt Baker is the clear and obvious number 1 contender for the Women's Championship, and I will show you the rankings after this match. But yeah, it's obvious that they're really simmering this rivalry between B. Priestley and Britt Baker. And one thing that I've also noticed is that in all 3 matches where they have been in tag team competition, they were not involved in the decision together. That's one thing I've noticed, is that both times that Britt Baker has picked up the victory in these tag team matches, last week was during Dark when it happened, and then this week, or at least in this show, Britt Baker picked up the victory, but not against B. Priestley. So I have a feeling they're going to be saving that for Full Gear, and that's where I think this rivalry will come to a head. Excuse me. And then you look at Riho. So the B. Priestley Britt Baker thing, that's pretty obvious. That's the most obvious thing. What's not so obvious is how Riho has a connection to both of her opponents here. Now you might be thinking, well, how does Riho have any sort of connection to B. Priestley, the new inaugural AEW Women's World Champion? What kind of connection would she have to B. Priestley? Well, as it turns out, even though they wrestle for AEW right now, they are also wrestling for a Japanese wrestling organization known as Stardom. And B. Priestley is actually the World of Stardom champion, which is basically their top championship. And Riho is the High Speed champion, of Stardom, which is basically like, say, the Cruiserweight Championship for Stardom, where it's for the high-speed wrestlers, the fast wrestlers, and the high-flying wrestlers. So, in addition to being the AEW Women's World Champion, Riho is also the Stardom High-Speed Champion, and in addition to that, she is also Singapore Pro Wrestling's Queen of Asia Champion. So, Riho is holding 3 championship belts right now, which is just crazy to think about. But, yeah, I think it's more of like a connection in passing in this case, because they both also wrestle for Stardom. But the other connection that Riho has is with Emi Sakura, and the connection there is that Sakura is actually the one who trained Riho to become a wrestler when she was in the Ice Ribbon organization. So, Riho and Sakura know each other very well, because, you know, Sakura's the one who trained Riho, you know, and now Riho is the AEW Women's World Champion. And I took a look at some of the accolades that Riho has. Like, holy shit, dude. I can't believe how many freaking championships that Riho has under her belt in her professional wrestling career. Keep in mind, Riho started wrestling at the age of 9. 9 years old, she started her professional wrestling career. Well, she started training to become a professional wrestler. But be that as it may, I mean... that's absolutely insane. Most of her childhood was basically spent as a professional wrestler, and now it's kind of gone on into her adult childhood, or her adulthood, into her adult years. I mean, she's only 22 years old. That's the other crazy thing. And of course, the full name of the organization that she was also under in Japan is World Wonder Ring Stardom. Weird name, I know, but you know. But yeah, that is crazy. And right now she's appearing for All Elite Wrestling, so they probably have some kind of deal worked out where, you know, she's not exclusive to AEW, because, you know, she's also the champion for Stardom, and she's also a champion for Singapore Pro Wrestling. I mean, she's got all kinds of championships. I mean, let's take a look at this real quick. So, right now, World Wonder Ring Stardom, her championships and accomplishments. World Wonder Ring Stardom, High Speed Champion. She's the current champion. Singapore Pro Wrestling, Queen of Asia Champion, current champion. Ice Ribbon, which was her first organization. Ice 60 Champion. International Ribbon Tag Team Champion. Triangle Ribbon Champion. Teens 5 Tournament winner. First Triple Crown Champion. That's pretty cool. Gato Move Pro Wrestling. Asia Dream Tag Team Champion. IWA Triple Crown Champion. Twice. And, oh, wow. There's actually another championship that she currently holds. The Super Asia Championship. She's the current champion there, too. Like, holy shit, dude. That's insane. You know, she has championships in 4 different organizations. I mean, this just tells you how much a lot of these wrestling organizations think of Riho. It's pretty freaking clear that she's got a massive amount of talent. And of course, you know, she has the look. You know, she has the markability, you know? And, I mean, look at all these championships. I mean, the Guntanon Climax, which I'm assuming is a tournament. Go Green Curry Kobe Kun Cup, which I'm assuming is another tournament. Super Asia First Champion Determination Tournament, so another tournament that she won. Fuka Matsuri, not exactly sure what that is. Oh, I guess it's a because there's one that says Fuka Matsuri Rumble, which I'm assuming is something that well, she's a retired professional wrestler, so I guess it's something she held. DDT Pro Wrestling. How do you pronounce that? Gyogaka 6-person Tag Team Championship. The DDT Nihonkai 6-man Tag Team Championship with Kenny Omega and Mr. Number 6. And the UWA World Trios Championship. And of course the AEW Women's World Championship. I mean, that's just crazy. Apparently, she only started wrestling for Stardom in August, and she's already the high-speed champion. I mean, holy crap. She's a busy girl. You know, wrestling for all these organizations. You know, high-speed champion for World Wonder Ring Stardom, Queen of Asia champion for Singapore Pro Wrestling, Super Asia champion for Gato Move Pro Wrestling, and the AEW Women's World Championship. That is incredibly insane. But her talents are in high demand right now. It's absolutely crazy. But you know, good on her for doing it. She is making one hell of a living right now as a professional wrestler. And of course, as you know, it all comes. You know, it was all topped off with the AEW Women's World Championship. Sorry, I kind of went into a tangent there, but I mean, I just want to kind of, you know, bring to light, you know, all the accomplishments that she has in her career, and kind of a reason why she is the AEW Women's World Champion. So, but, anywho, let's get into this tag match. Only lasted about 8 minutes and 40 seconds total. Emmy and Riho start out. Emmy hits a falling slam for a 2 count. But of course, Riho bridges out with her usual, you know, bridge out of the pin, and hits a drop kick. Sakura hits a Beal, where basically she grabbed Riho by the hair and just tossed her. B Priestley was getting involved in the match on the outside. Sakura hits a body slam, and then puts a surfboard stretch on. And then Priestley and Baker go at each other on the floor, which you knew that was going to boil over. And then B Priestley and Sakura hits a double suplex on Britt Baker, and then Riho climbs up to the top turnbuckle and hits a flying crossbody on all of them, which was pretty crazy. Riho and Baker hit flying knee strikes, and then Riho hits a head scissors takedown and a 619. B Priestley hits a double stomp, and then Priestley and Sakura hit running soccer kicks on, I believe, I think it was Riho, I think. Priestley hits a capture suplex. Actually, it was Britt Baker that was in it this time. Priestley hits a capture suplex for a 2 count. Then Riho hits a flying knee strike. B Priestley with a nice roundhouse kick. Priestley and Baker start trading forearm strikes. Riho hits the double stomp. Baker with a hanging DDT, which looked really nice. Sakura with a butterfly backbreaker and then a flying crossbody in the corner. And then she hits a spinning senton splash for a 2 count. Britt Baker hits a cutter. And then Riho does the victory roll stomp on, I believe, B Priestley. That move always looks good. Baker hits a fisherman neck breaker and also a rolling elbow on Sakura. And then, of course, she hits the page turner and locks Sakura in. The Rings of Saturn fish hook combo, or the mandible claw, that I'm calling the dentist drill for right now until she gives it an official name, for the submission victory. So, your winners by submission, Riho and Britt Baker. And then after the match, Baker and Priestley were continuing to go at it. Just, you know, this rivalry, I think they're going to come to a head at Full Gear. And don't be the least bit surprised if it's some kind of stipulation match, like a hardcore match or a cage match or something of that nature, you know, to blow this whole rivalry off. You know, this rivalry has been simmering since Fight for the Fallen, I believe back in June or July. So this rivalry's been going on for quite a bit. So don't be the least bit surprised if they blow this whole thing off at Full Gear, or they may keep it going. Who knows? But yeah, this was actually a pretty solid match. Another good solid match. I gave it 3.25 stars out of 5. And of course, this victory for Britt Baker in particular, since everything counts for the women right now, since there's no tag team division. And I said this last week as well. This pretty much puts Britt Baker as the clear-cut #1 contender. I mean, it was so obvious to me because if you take everything into account, Riho, of course, is the world champion with 5 wins and 1 loss. Riho has been on every single show thus far, and that streak will continue this coming Wednesday. So all 7 AEW shows so far, and Riho's going to be on all of them. That's pretty crazy. And then you look at Britt Baker. Her record overall is 3-1, and she also has that runner-up at the Casino Battle Royal at All Out. So that puts her at 115 AEW points. The next closest wrestler is Priestley. She has a record of 1-2, but because of a 3rd place effort in the Casino Battle Royal, that puts her at the number 2 spot, actually, with 105. So Britt Baker has a 10-point gap between herself and Priestley, and because this was so obvious to me. It's like, we're not going to need a number 1 contenders match, for the women's championship. It'll be Riho versus Britt Baker. It should be obvious. And that's what they made for this coming Wednesday. Riho versus Britt Baker in the first defense for the AEW Women's World Championship. Makes sense to me. And, for Britt Baker, even if she does lose this match this coming Wednesday, she's still going to be the number 1 ranked wrestler in the women's division. And then they'll probably have like some kind of, another number 1 contenders match between Britt Baker and Priestley for who contends for the championship again. But yeah, right now it's basically been Riho and Britt Baker taking over this women's division. I know some people are like, well, wouldn't Nyla Rose get another rematch for the championship? Fuck no. Because when you look at Nyla Rose's record, if you don't count the Casino Battle Royal as a victory, which I do, because, you beat 20 other wrestlers, so why wouldn't it count as a... Nyla Rose is not deserving of another championship run right now. Because even if you take the Casino Battle Royal out of the equation, she has 0 wins. To her credit. She's 0-3 in AEW without the Casino Battle Royal victory, because she lost that Fatal 4-Way even though she wasn't involved in the decision. And then she lost the triple at Double or Nothing. Then she lost the triple threat at Fyter Fest. And then, of course, she lost on the first episode of Wednesday Night Dynamite. So, at the moment, she needs to, I think, tear ass back through the rankings to even be considered a viable threat for the championship again. So, that's just how I feel about that. Anywho, they do an interview with the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy afterwards. Basically, the Best Friends getting ready for their match in the tag team title tournament against SCU this coming Wednesday. And then the lights go out and we see the entrance of Shawn Spears. It is Shawn Spears against Jon Moxley. That I did not give a reading for. That's weird. Alright, so Jon Moxley against Shawn Spears, and believe it or not, this is actually Jon Moxley's official debut as far as official matches are concerned, because remember, at Fyter Fest it was an unsanctioned match, and they actually acknowledged that when he came out for his entrance and it showed his name on the screen. Next to it, it has all of his records, and they all said 0-0. So even they acknowledged that the match against Joey Janela at Fyter Fest doesn't count. So I think that's a good bit of continuity. So highlights of the match. Moxley gets a 10 punch in, does a soccer kick and a back elbow. Moxley's one of them brawler types, so you're not going to see a lot of fancy schmancy moves out of him. He hits a back elbow and then a flying elbow strike. Spears hits a snake eyes. And then another sick moment of the match was when Spears hit the running Death Valley driver into the barricade. Of course, Spears had Tully Blanchard at ringside, and of course he was getting involved quite a bit, which that kind of irritates me. It's like, you know, it just makes Shawn Spears look like he can't do it on his own. You know, and I realize that Spears is a heel, but I mean, Jesus Christ. Keep the managers out of the fucking match. If you want them at ringside to, you know, as a manager, and you want them to cheer them on, go right ahead, but I mean, as far as them getting involved in the match, I fucking hate that shit. I mean, that just literally drops the enjoyment level of the match down for me when people do that shit. One thing I also noticed, it looked like Moxley was favoring his left hand a little bit, so I don't know if he hurt it during the match or what the deal was. Hopefully it's nothing serious, because that would suck for him to basically have to take some time off again after just getting over that arm infection. That would really suck. Spears does some mounted punches, a double stomp, a knee drop, and an elbow drop for a 2 count. He lays in some knife edge chops and then a drop kick for a 2 count. Spears spits water in Mox's face, and that seemed to wake Moxley up. Spears hits a sky high for a 2 count, and then goes for a half crab. Spears hits a tope suicida, and then Moxley does the same thing to him. Didn't really look all that good though. Moxley hits a lariat in the corner, and I tell you, Moxley, his lariats just look vicious. And then Moxley hits a running knee strike for a 2 count. Spears hits a low drop kick, or a low kick, but Mox follows up with another lariat. Spears hits the Ushigoroshi, the Death Valley driver, across the knee for a 2 count. Mox hits a nice looking headbutt. And then he follows it up with a paradigm shift, his Impaler double arm DDT for the 3 count and the victory. I gave this match 3 stars out of 5. After the match, Kenny Omega comes out with a barbed wire wrapped broom and bat. Of course, he's carrying the broom because he's known as the cleaner. And Moxley starts walking towards Omega. Omega tosses him the bat, and he holds up the broom. And it's like, well, these two are going to actually get it on right here with their weapons. And the crowd actually starts chanting, holy shit. Pac was actually on commentary this entire time, and he was bitching throughout the match about why he wasn't getting an AEW World Title shot when he beat Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page. You know, which he does have a point. But I think that's all on storyline as well. You know, the attention to detail that AEW has right now is just, it's just miles better than WWE. And, you know, I think they really want to save Pac because, I mean, it's obvious that he's part of the team, he's part of AEW now. And it looks like they're really going to be investing, you know, a lot in him because, I mean, he is one of the best wrestlers in the world right now. So I don't think they want to, you know, front load a championship match with him involved, you know, right out of the gate. You know, they want to build some steam for it a little bit. But as Omega and Moxley were showing down, Pac takes a chair and attacks Omega from behind with the chair. And Moxley chases him off. Moxley was not too pleased, you know, because he wanted to show down with Omega, and Pac basically took that away from him. Of course, those two are going to be teaming up this coming Wednesday. Who the fuck were they taking on? I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. Shit. And I think, well, is he going to, you know, take advantage of Omega? No, he dropped the bat and walked away because it's like, you know, he doesn't want to, you know, take advantage of that. I mean, what point do you prove from that? And then we had our main event of the evening. You had the Natural, Dustin Rhodes, and Hangman Adam Page teaming up to take on Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho of the Inner Circle. This match lasted for 13 and a half minutes. There was a lot of shit that went on in this match. And of course, Jake Hager came out to ringside with the Inner Circle. What? So highlights of this match. Dustin starts going after Jericho. Dustin hits a flying lariat. Rhodes and Page start alternating lariats. Page, of course, hits his follow-away slam. I forget what the Pescado was. Fuck. My brain's a little bit fried at the moment. I'm trying to remember what the Pescado was. Well, whatever. But Page hits a pump handle fall-away slam pin for a 2 count, which looked really good. Dustin hits an atomic suplex where he basically picks him up like an atomic drop but drops him down to the mat. And then Page hits a ground shooting star press for a 2 count. Page hit a slam. Guevara with a Samoan snake eyes for a 2 count. What I mean by that is Guevara had Page, I think it was Page, in a fireman's carry up on the middle turnbuckle, and he basically dropped down and smashed Page into the top turnbuckle stomach first. So we get a commercial break. Come back to see Jericho pushing his knee into Page while he was in the ropes, kind of choking him out. Page moves out of the way when Jericho tries to go for a knee attack, and Jericho sells the knee. Guevara goes for cover, but gets only a 2 count. Page hits a back suplex, but Jericho knocks Page down, goes for the lion salt, but Page counters by putting the knees up. Page hits a vicious rolling elbow on Guevara. Guevara sold it like a champ. He basically did a backflip from the rolling elbow. That looked really good. And then Dustin's lariats were really good. Rhodes hits a kneeling uppercut, of course the patented kneeling uppercut. He hits Manhattan drops on both opponents and also a flying crossbody on both opponents. Guevara does a low bridge, but Hangman does an Asai moonsault to the outside, but then Hager hits a lariat on Page, so he finally gets involved. Fucking hate that shit. Dustin hits a Yoshitonic on Guevara for a 2 count, or on Jericho for a 2 count, I should say. He sets Jericho up for the Shattered Dreams in the corner. Hits the snap power slam on Guevara, but while Guevara is distracting the referee, Hager runs in and hits a lariat on Dustin Rhodes. That part actually kind of pissed me off because the referee looked over, and saw Hager he saw Hager getting out of the ring, and he basically decided to play dumb. So that part fucking pissed me off. Get rid of the fucking interferences. I fucking hate that shit. It just ruins the match for me. It really does. And then Jericho takes advantage and hits the Judas effect for the 3 count and the win. So, I mean, Jericho remains unbeaten in AEW. It's obvious that they're going to keep him looking strong, especially in the record department. I mean, this match was pretty good overall. I just fucking hate the interference. I gave this match 3 stars out of 5. So basically, none of the matches went below a 3 for me, but the interferences just really brought down the last 2 matches for me. That's just how I feel. And of course, Guevara and Jericho Hager start attacking Dustin. Page comes back into the ring and starts attacking everyone. Hager clotheslines Adam Page out of the ring, but Page grabs a chair and just throws it at Hager. That looked pretty vicious. But Jericho and Guevara continue attacking Dustin Rhodes. The lights go out and Cody Rhodes appears in the ring and gives a nasty crossroads to Guevara. Jericho and Cody faces off, but then Santana Ortiz comes out to attack Cody. And then the Young Bucks come out to even up the odds. They super kick Guevara, super kick Santana and Ortiz. They basically fly out of the ring and start attacking Santana and Ortiz. So there's going to be a rivalry between those two before it's all said and done. Jericho basically starts walking away with the championship belt, attacks the referee, and then coming down the ramp, much to the delight of the crowd, was Darby Allin on his fucking skateboard and attacks Jericho, starts giving him mounted punches, and then he attacks him with the skateboard. First jams it into his gut, and then hits him in the back with the skateboard. And it's just like, holy shit. And then Jericho gets on the mic because he's pissy as all hell. Yeah, and it's basically like, to the Elite, was basically like, you idiots don't know what you're dealing with. And then he basically said to Darby Allin, he's like, it's your funeral, bitch. And Darby is like, bring it on, motherfucker. And what a way to end the second episode of Raw, of Dynamite. Fuck Raw. But that's basically how you end an episode. I mean, at Hell in a Cell last week, I mean, the WWE had this fuckery finish, and the entire crowd was incredibly pissed off. And that's not how you want to end a wrestling show. You need to build towards your next show, and that's basically what AEW has been doing. Building towards that next episode, which is this coming Wednesday in Philadelphia. And they've been doing that. They've been doing one hell of a job. Now, granted, viewership kind of dropped a little bit, but I think that was to be expected because the Major League Baseball playoffs are on right now, and there were a couple of Game 5s. So the viewership dropped a little bit, but it was still at 1.1, which for them is still pretty good. But I think if they keep up programming like this and wrestling fans start getting more and more involved again, I think they'll start to see those numbers start to go up a little bit. But as for my final rating for this show, the second episode of All Elite Wrestling Dynamite, honestly, this was even better than the first episode. I mean, all the matches were solid. That tag team match at the beginning was awesome sauce. Great continuity with storytelling. Shit making sense. The Darby Allin challenging for the championship might not make that much sense, but I mean, he is top 5 in the rankings when you look at my rankings, so it does kind of make sense. Britt Baker versus Riho for the championship in Philadelphia, that definitely makes sense because they're the top 2 in the company right now. And then of course this faction war between the Elite and the Inner Circle is entertaining as all hell. This show, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It was that entertaining. It left me wanting more once again, So I can't wait for this coming Wednesday night for the third episode. And speaking of the third episode of All Elite Wrestling in Philadelphia, so there's going to be 5 matches that we know of once again for Dynamite. And I gotta tell you something, man. This Philadelphia show is stacked. It's absolutely stacked because the quality of matches is just crazy. I mean, you have the first 2 championship defenses for both of the singles championships. You have Riho taking on Britt Baker for the AEW Women's World Championship, the first defense for that title. And, I just noticed this now. For the AEW World Championship, the Men's World Championship, Chris Jericho versus Darby Allin in a Philly street fight. I just now noticed that. So we are going to have a street fight match for the AEW World Championship. So basically it's going to be a hardcore match. Of course, because it's a street fight match, it's not going to be false count anywhere, but it's basically going to be weapons allowed. There's probably going to be some outside interference and all that fuckery, because and here's the thing about the AEW World Championship match. Jericho is going to be retaining. There's no way on God's green earth they're going to give Darby Allin the championship this soon, even though he is getting over, because they're building towards the Full Gear match between Jericho and Cody. That's going to be the big money match. However, while this is a predictable outcome, that's not necessarily what's important here. What's important is how they tell the story. Sometimes the journey is more fulfilling than the destination. And in this case, it's like, how are they going to tell the story between Chris Jericho and Darby Allin? How are they going to make it plausible for Darby to basically come close to beating Jericho for the championship? Because Jericho's retaining. I mean, that part is going to be obvious. But it's like, how close is it going to be to him losing the championship? And how legitimate do they make Darby Allin? Because, this is an opportunity for Darby to become a huge star in AEW. And he's already starting to get over with the crowd. So, this has a lot of potential to be one hell of a match. And I just now saw that it was going to be a Philly street fight. And if that's the case, holy shit. Because I've already said how much I love hardcore matches. But for the AEW title, sign me up. Take my fucking money. And in addition to our 2 championship matches, there's also going to be 3 tag team matches once again on this show. Again, I'm emphasizing tag team wrestling. But look at these tag team matches. Like, holy shit. Like, this is stacked to hell. I mean, one of the matches is The Cleaner, Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page versus Jon Moxley and Pac. Dude, the fucking star power from that match. Like, holy shit. And and it makes sense too, because you have Kenny Omega against Jon Moxley, and of course those two are colliding head to head. And of course Omega was in a match against Pac at All Out, and then you look at Hangman Adam Page against Pac. And of course those two have had a rivalry over this past year. So, this is just a crazy match right here, and they all come together. I mean, it's awesome sauce. And of course, I talked about the Women's World Championship between Riho and Britt Baker. Obvious matchup. They didn't even need a number 1 contenders match, because Britt Baker was the clear and obvious number 1 contender based on overall record. This has the potential to be one of the best matches of the year. I mean, when you look at, the wrestling talent that these two ladies have, Britt Baker's, influence, some of her moves are obviously, are influenced from her boyfriend, Adam Cole. Riho, of course, I've already mentioned all the fucking accolades she has. This has the potential to be one of the best matches of the year. One of the best women's matches of the year for sure. So seeing that's going to be cool. And then on top of all that, you have the World Tag Team Championship Tournament. You have the final 2 matches of the first round. And holy shit. I mean, this show has so much potential to be one of the best, if not the best, wrestling show of the year on television. Because in one of the matches you have SoCal Uncensored, which is the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian against the Best Friends, Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor. It's the other tag team match, though, that I think is going to be, how do you say it? It's going to split the audience. Because the other first round match is between pretty much 2 of the most popular tag teams in the world right now. The Lucha Brothers and Jurassic Express. A Boy and His Dinosaur, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus. Of course, Jurassic Park has been over as all hell. Probably the most over tag team in AEW right now. Of course, the Lucha Brothers are over as fuck. And of course, they have the pedigree and the resume. I think they're the current House of Glory Tag Team Champions right now, as well as the AAA World Tag Team Champions. So, the Lucha Brothers, they've got the clout, for sure. But how much do you want to bet Jurassic Park goes over, though? Because I think they've been keeping Jurassic Express from winning matches they've been winless so far in AEW, but I think they've been saving everything for this tournament. Because if Jurassic Express, if Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy come out with the AEW World Tag Team Championships in Charleston, the roof's going to come off the fucking place. You know? So, I mean, and who knows, and it's like, who knows what the dark matches are going to be. I mean, the Dynamite card is just stacked all to hell. Like, holy shit. This card, this coming Wednesday, for Wednesday Night Dynamite, is packed. It is jam-packed. You got 3 big tag team matches and 2 championship matches, with the world title match being a Philly street fight. I can't wait for this Wednesday. I mean, it has been so fucking long since I have been legitimately excited for professional wrestling. Because like I said before, WWE used to be my thing, but then it eventually became background noise, and then eventually I just stopped watching altogether. Because it was just so fucking boring to me, you know, by the time, you know, the mid-2010s came around. And now you have AEW, and it has just been fucking phenomenal so far. There have been some missteps here and there, and I've pointed those out. But, you know, this past week in Boston was... One second. But yeah, bottom line, I haven't been this excited about a wrestling show in a long ass time. And, I mean, for the longest time, over the past couple years, I've just been relegated to watching highlights. Because, you know, what's been the fucking point? Because there's just been no alternative for professional wrestling in the United States as far as the mainstream. Because the WWE has always had, like, a monopoly on it ever since WCW and ECW went out of business. But now with All Elite Wrestling, wrestling is fun again. Wrestling is interesting again. And hopefully this week is going to live up to the hype, because it is a stacked fucking card. It really is. And this coming week on Wednesday Night Dynamite has so much potential. I honestly can't wait. I am legitimately excited. And hopefully it lives up to the hype. So, well, to me, it's already lived up to the hype. I mean, the first 2 episodes have been fucking awesome. So here's hoping that number 3 takes it all the way. But we'll have to wait and see what happens, as usual. But thank you very much for watching on this special Monday edition of All Elite Review. Of course, this should have went up on Friday, but like I said, I've been busy with all this shit right here. It's just been a pain in the ass, but... well, we got AEW Dark on Tuesday for the Boston show, and hopefully that'll come out on time on Thursday, and then of course Wednesday Night Dynamite. What a time to be a wrestling fan right now, I'll tell you that much. But thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. See ya! Well, that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, favorite, like, and subscribe to my channels here on youtube.com and over on bitchute.com. If you would like to sponsor my channel, go to my channel page at subscribestar.com. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Have a good one.